Okay, so we're doing this.
We are doing this.
All right, so what we're doing here is we are creating a companion piece to your book, Resilient, Achieving the American Dream.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, there's a lot, you say it in the initial pages, you say there is a lot that's untold in here. So our goal with this is for people who have already read the book or are going to start reading the book, that they can go chapter by chapter and listen to our thoughts on the chapter after actually reading it. So ideally, you'll listen to chapter 1 and then join us here for the chapter 1 companion and then go to read chapter 2, and we're going to help you get there. But the reason we're doing this is there's going to be a lot more insights, a lot more Lenny, and you are going to get more of the great Zen Len and hear more about what created Lenny Bazemore.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's get right into it with chapter 1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so chapter 1 starts with a bang. Who is Lark Ramsey?
Lark Ramsey is a guy from the neighborhood who I never met. On this one particular night, after my Uncle Man had just gotten married, and we had a reception. So me, my cousin Lenton, a couple other people went down to the Gold Star. That's where the hangout was. We smoked a little weed, drank a couple of beers, and I said hi to this guy who was leaning up against his car. Or at least I thought it was his car. I said, "Hey, what's up, my brother? How you doing?" And he was really pissed off, and he said, "Fuck you, nut." I said, "Who are you calling nut?" He said, "You." He got up off the car, got in my face, huffing and puffing. My sister Tara and a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours named Lisa Navarro, came up and said, "Lenny, don't fight him. Don't fight him. That's Lark Ramsey." I'm like, I don't know this guy. You know what I'm saying? I don't give a damn who it is. So, he was huffing and puffing and in my face, and I was in his face, and I decided to walk away. I took one step away, and he punched me. I looked at him, and he knew he fucked up.
And so why do you choose to start the book there?
Well, the book starts there because I did want to start it off with a bang, capture your attention right away, and then lead into current events. So
as we're kind of going through this and doing this, basically I took copious notes, and I actually don't know what's happening beyond where we're at in the story. So this will be fun for the reader as well. You make a comment about millionaires.
Mm-hmm.
Who was the first millionaire in your family?
I was.
And when did you call that would happen?
When I was 6, 7, 8 years old, I was playing in the dirt. Back then we had Matchbox cars. We'd play in the dirt. And I'd always have this long, beautiful driveway. And I always had, the nice cars that would drive down the long driveway and park at the nice house. And this is all from my imagination. Mm-hmm. And I was playing in the dirt with Johnny Carbone, a childhood friend. And one day his mother came out on the porch and said, Johnny. He got up, ran over to her. She put a gold chain around his neck. And he came back to show me. And it was beautiful. I've never seen a gold chain like that. And I said, "Hey, where'd you get that?" Obviously, his mom gave it to him, but where? And he said that she just got back from Italy, and it's Italian gold. I was like, I want one. And he was like, no, you can't have one. And that's when I decided, at that age, 6, 7, 8 years old, that one day I will go to Italy and I will get my own gold chain. And so that thought process turned into, I want more, right? And then there was this TV show I used to watch called Dynasty. And ironically, there was a friend of mine who's now a friend of mine, right? Mm-hmm. He was a character on Dynasty. His name is Richard Lawson. And we become friends, but I witnessed his character on Dynasty, and I witnessed the Carringtons, the rich white family with the mansions and the horses. You know, it was just, it blew my mind. And I was wondering why my life wasn't like that. So as a little kid, you start to, you know, use your imagination. And next thing I know, I was thinking about one day I'm going to be a millionaire. I didn't know how, but one day I knew I was going to be a millionaire.
Something really interesting about chapter 1 is that you kind of lay out where we're going to go in the book, and you hit on a lot of things and set up this beautiful introduction for what is to come. So if it feels like we're jumping around a little bit, that's just because the intro hits a lot. But one of the first things that really popped out to me is you start discussing therapy in Black households. Can you explain for the white people out there and for those who might not know, what is therapy thought of in Black households?
Yep. Hey, what's up, white people out there? This is coming from a Black man in America. Therapy is not as prevalent in Black households. Where I grew up, it was, hey, man, what are you, crazy? You know, the stigmatism that comes along with being brave, knowing that something is not right, you want to fix it, but, you know, you're so concerned about other people talking bad about you, kind of makes you feel like, you know, I don't want to fix this because I don't want people looking at me like I am crazy, when all I'm trying to do is heal. And so, you know, I do cover it in the book. And I am proud of the fact that I'm very exposed, right, in the book. Yes, I went to therapy. I'm still in therapy. Every now and then I'll take a session, and it's to help me continue to heal, right? Not only heal, but to have insight on when a traumatic experience happens in my life. I'll have a few tools to be able to deal with it. So I'm very proud of that.
So one of the things you say is that you describe that you are someone who always talks about money and cusses too much. That was one of your first statements to the therapist.
Yeah.
Why did you say that?
Because I am new money, right? I didn't grow up with money. And so, you know, having tact and having the ability to intelligently talk about money, I didn't have those things. I had to learn those things. And so part of me still being raw, right? Wet behind the ears, so to speak. I had to learn how to be a millionaire, not just to how to continue to be a millionaire and how money works, but I had to learn how to act with money. So cursing, I think cursing is an extension of expression. And I used to say all the time, I don't trust people that don't curse. But coming from the place where I came from, I used it as an aggression, right? If an attacker's coming, I'm going to get loud and big. And that's how I used it for a very long time. And it's stressful living an aggressive life, but where I come from, you had to be. And only until I moved out of my neighborhood and then farther away and then absolutely farther away was I able to have some sort of control over my emotions, right? Have that emotional intelligence, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. And who is Dr. Kelly?
Dr. Kelly is my therapist. She was the one who I sought out when I needed help. And she guided me in ways that I could never thank her for. And generally speaking, it's the ability to have the tools, right, to understand your past, your present, and things that may happen to you in the future. So shout out to Dr. Kelly. Thank you for helping me through therapy and giving me tools to deal with life.
Now, there's a reason that you enter into therapy, and it's not what you would think,
right,
for someone who's lived the life that you had.
Right.
You were waking up in the middle of the night.
Sure. Panic attacks.
Yes.
Yeah, that felt like heart attacks. And I wouldn't wish this on anyone, right? I urge people to not fight through it, to seek help through a counselor, a teacher, a parent, a friend, a confidant. Just speak up because I held it in, and it got to me, and it manifested as pain, right? Heart attack. I thought I was having a heart attack. Early in the morning, my wife Teresa had to call 911, and they showed up at like 3:30 in the morning. I couldn't live my life like that. I didn't want to live my life like that. I knew that there was a better way. So,
yeah, and EMTs did come to the house.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as you said. So this was serious. You thought you were a goner.
I thought I was going to die. Yeah.
Oof. And were you having dreams at the same time as well? Like were you waking up in terror?
I did not have nightmares, right? Like that. I hardly remember my dreams. Every now and then, yeah, the pain and suffering, right, would come to light, and it would manifest itself in a dream, and I would wake up, but it wouldn't be like an abrupt waking up, like, oh my God, where am I? Mm-hmm. One of those things. You know, I usually get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, and, you know, on the way back, I'll think about it, you know what I mean? Because the room's dark, and, you know, I sometimes get claustrophobic, and so I'll think about it, but it never really bothered me in my sleep like that, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it would, you know, bother me when I was driving, you know, stuff like that. There's a few times I had to pull off to the side of the road and deal with it. You know, that it was like my brain was tightening up, and it's scary. And so I had to pull off and use a breathing technique that Dr. Kelly taught me.
So, although it's funny because you say you don't remember your dreams, you certainly have a incredible memory. In chapter 1, you talk about your earliest memory.
Mm-hmm.
How do you have a memory from when you were 2?
Well, it's embedded in my brain because of the love that my grandmother gave me. And I remember, sorry, I get choked up when I talk about her. I remember a lot because of, you know, that was my first real experience receiving pure love, you know. So my grandmother loved me very much. As a matter of fact, when I was a kid, and my family knows this story, when I was a kid, I would ask my grandmother, you know, Mom, whose chocolate cake is that in the refrigerator? And she would say, yours if you want it. She would give me anything I asked for. So, yeah, a lot of my early childhood memories are embedded and ingrained in my head because of the love that I received at that time.
The other thing you allude to that is the complete opposite of the spectrum mm-hmm. is near-death experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So
there's a few.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are. So did these all manifest and start to impact you later? Do you think you were maybe pushing it down and it was showing up, or had it been there all along?
That's a good question. Thank you for asking. They manifest in different ways, right? They come about in different ways. Some affected me immediately, some affected me during, and some affected me later in life. And it's never fun when you're experiencing flashbacks. It's never fun when you're dealing with some of the aftermath of the trauma that you had early on, right? Or at different parts of your life. And that's why, to bring it back, that's why therapy is so important.
Had PTSD ever even come across your mind as something you might have?
No, PTSD is something that you hear about when, you know, someone from the armed forces comes home, mm-hmm. right? It's someone else's story. It's never your story. It wasn't my story. And only in therapy did I realize that I did have symptoms of PTSD. And that was a shocker to me. But then I thought about it and I said, my God, where I grew up was a war zone sometimes, an urban war zone. And, I think that people, they live and grew up where I did, more of them should benefit, go to therapy to benefit from therapy. And unfortunately, I don't know if they will or not. But the way we grow up has a deep, lasting effect on us for our entire lives. And if we are not careful, those traumas will manifest into something else.
So there's a couple of things you mentioned that I expect to uncover as we go through the book. You talk about Nimmy. You talk about your father being an emotional void.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about a drunk stepfather never talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
And those are all mentioned in chapter 1.
Mm-hmm.
What are you setting us up for?
I'm setting you up for an understanding that this is a true memoir, right? This is my interpretation, my experiences, and this is all about me and how I viewed the world at that time. And I wanted to give you a little bit of insight, so that, the reader would be curious to continue reading the book.
Before we move on to chapter 2, I would like to know why you wrote the book.
I wrote the book to heal. I needed to get it out of me, right? I needed to move on. I was dealing with too much trauma. It was just heavy. And, I needed an outlet, a creative outlet, right? I have a fine art degree. I'm an artist. I paint, right? I owned a fine art gallery in Philadelphia for 5 years, a very successful gallery that everyone loved. And I found ways to create. I found ways to exert energies or expressions, right? Writing a book, I've always wanted to write a book since, I can remember, because I'd be at dinner with, someone, and when you're at dinner, you're talking about your life, and I'd tell all these stories, and every time someone heard a story, they'd be like, oh man, you should write a book. So after hearing that countless times, I had it in my head that, one day I'm going to write a book. And as a matter of fact, you're one of those.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
Remember, we were hanging out in Philadelphia, right? And you asked me, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said, hey, how did you get all this? And I was only in Philadelphia at the time. I didn't live in Hollywood Hills.
Yeah.
You want to tell me about that day?
It's true. I mean, so I had looked up to you as, business leader in Philadelphia. And you kind of came to me and said, let's do something creative, man. Let's make a movie or something. And which we would later do, but it starts with, well, let's get a couple of drinks and figure it out. Let's just talk it through. And that turns into, I think I asked one question. I think I said, getting to this point, how did you do it? And what would come out would be this incredible story in pieces, not fully formed as it is in the book, but to the point where I'm like, Lenny, that's got to be the movie. That's got to be the short film. And you're like, well, I think it'll be a book first. Cut 2, it is now a book. I'm holding it in my hands. It's amazing. We're in chapter 1. But yeah, as far as if you're wondering who the other voice is on the companion piece, yes, I was a fan of Lenny's first. Lenny, watching him as a business leader in the community, watching how he presented himself, watching how he dealt with situations, he very quickly became a mentor to me during that time. And the story, what's great is when you approach someone and you want their wisdom.
A regular guy.
And you ask for their wisdom. I love it when it comes from stories from the past and little lessons, analogies, and you were able to speak in that because you had lived it.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything, whenever I've, been dealing with something or I remember I made a decision and publicly people were disagreeing with me about it. And I called you. You had already moved to LA, and I was like, "Hey, man, I'm dealing with something." And your idea was just keep going. Don't worry about what people say. Don't worry about the naysayers. You just stay true to who you are and remain resilient to your path and your mission, and it'll work itself out.
Did it work itself out?
It did. It did, and you were right. You were right. But yeah, so that is chapter 1. Chapter 1's essentially short and sweet,
Let's
but
back
sets
that
it all up.
Just so you know, I wasn't trying to be right. What I was is trying to be a good friend and support you the way that you wanted to be supported, the way that you needed to be supported. Now, to get off of that, in your previous statement, you said that we created a movie together.
Yes.
The short film was not about my story. The short film was something that I created that I thought was a unique idea. And you want to tell the people how it was working with me?
Well, honestly, it was a blast because we start talking script, and a script comes, and you have a concept. Funny side note is I remember you specifically saying, the film will not be about my life. I have plans for that. Because this was a short. And then it turned into a script. The script was very interesting. It was about voiceover artists that were a family that did voices for a cartoon. And I came over because we were going to block out the scene. We were going to figure out where we were going to put the angles, where we were going to put the cameras, things of that nature. Just kind of preliminary DP director type conversations. But before we did that, I also remember your wife, Teresa, coming in with a contract ready to go. She's kind of setting the terms right away.
Graduated Columbia Law.
That's right. That's right. But it went amazing. I mean, that was such a fun experience. And it was just great working with a creative like yourself who's kind of, you're not burdened by some of the things that a lot of creatives have to deal with.
Yeah, I've never done that before. I wrote, directed, and produced a short film. I figured it out. I said, I want to do it. I'm going to put good people around me. You're one of those good people.
I appreciate it.
I'm a big fan of yours as well.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And I think everybody is going to be a huge fan of this story. It only gets wilder from here. But even just setting the tone with chapter 1, I can tell that I'm in for something special.
Good. And you are. Resilient, achieving the American dream.